just looking for any program. You want a place where you can actually earn while you learn. You know, make some cash, get some experience, and hey, maybe even set down roots afterwards. Big decision, right? Tons to consider. Well, you're in luck because we've been digging deep into these EcoCore podcast episodes that you sent over. There's this expert on international education. They break down the absolute best countries for architects who are ready to launch their careers internationally. Now I know what you're thinking, a podcast about a podcast. Sounds kind of meta, right? But honestly, this is like a cheat code. You get all the juicy insights, all the need-to-know stuff, without having to spend hours and hours listening yourself. So to help me break it all down, I've got an architecture expert here with me today. Together, we're going to tackle those key factors you need to weigh, and then we'll actually dive into specific countries. We're talking work opportunities, those all-important visa pathways, language barriers, even what daily life is like in each place.
It really is fascinating, isn't it? I mean, choosing where to study abroad. Yeah. It's not just about academics. It's about your future, your career goals, like what kind of life do you actually picture for yourself? And the expert on EcoCore, they really hit on 4 big things you've got to consider. Work hours, how easy is it to get residency if you decide to stay, language, of course, and then just that overall quality of life thing, you know, beyond the job itself.
Okay, so let's start with those work hours, because it's not just about like fueling your late night study sessions, right? It's got to be legally possible in the first place. What's the deal there?
Right, exactly. Some countries are all about students getting that real world experience. Yeah. Like Germany, for example. Huge architecture industry over there, tons of internships, part-time gigs while you're studying. But there's a catch, and it's a big one. You really need to be fluent in German if you want to make the most of it. It's one thing to understand your professors, but it's a whole other level to navigate a workplace, build those relationships, you know, really become part of the industry.
Okay, challenge accepted. But what about if you're in it for the long haul? Like, is it even realistic to stick around in Germany after you graduate? Could you actually build a life there?
Yeah, so they do have pathways to residency, but it's not exactly a piece of cake. You're going to need a job offer and be prepared for some serious paperwork. It can get pretty bureaucratic. But there's a really interesting angle here. If you're passionate about sustainable design, well, Germany is leading the pack. I mean, we're talking cutting-edge passive house technology, all those green building certifications you hear about, a real commitment to, you know, shrinking those carbon footprints. So if you're driven, if you're willing to put in the work, mastering German, jumping through all those residency hoops, it could seriously pay off down the line.
So it's about playing the long game. Full immersion, language, culture, the whole 9 yards. Now, I know a ton of people are drawn to North America, especially the U.S. and Canada. So what's the deal with those two?
Well, the U.S. has some of the most prestigious architecture schools, period. We're talking Harvard, MIT, Yale, you know, names that carry serious weight. But, and this is a big but, that prestige comes with a hefty price tag. Tuition is through the roof. The cost of living in those big cities is astronomical. And even getting a student visa can be a major headache. Plus, to stay after you graduate, really tough. Not a lot of options for architects specifically.
Oof. That's a high-risk, high-reward situation if I've ever heard one. What about Canada, then? They've got that reputation for being pretty welcoming, eh?
Oh, yeah, totally. Canada's known for being super open to immigrants, and their whole points-based system, it really favors young professionals with good educations. Plus, their architecture schools are top-notch, and they've got this big emphasis on sustainable design.
Yeah.
Makes sense, right? With Canada's crazy climate and those unique landscape challenges. So think innovative timber construction, passive heating and cooling systems, a deep respect for nature woven right in. And, get this, they have programs specifically designed to help students transition to permanent residency after they graduate.
Okay, so maybe not the same glitz and glamour of, you know, Hollywood or whatever, but a much smoother path to building a life and a career. Speaking of practical stuff, the expert we're talking about, they mentioned Finland as a top contender, especially for architects who are all about that sustainability life. What's the deal there?
Finland is super interesting. They've been pioneers in sustainable design for, like, forever. Super focused on energy efficiency, renewable materials, creating buildings that actually blend into the natural environment. And their architecture programs totally reflect that. Lots of them offer specializations in sustainable design, urban planning, that kind of thing. And here's a big plus. A good chunk of those master programs are taught in English. So the language barrier isn't as high.
That's awesome. But can you actually work while you're studying there? And is staying afterwards even a possibility?
You could work part-time, up to 25 hours a week, which can really help with those living expenses. And yeah, they do have pathways to permanent residency, though it can take a few years. But here's where it gets really interesting. Finland's population is pretty small, but they have a huge demand for skilled professionals, especially in fields like architecture. So, if you build up a good network, get some work experience under your belt while you're studying, your chances of finding a job and staying in Finland long-term are actually really good.
I love that it's like their whole design philosophy, right?
Right.
Thoughtful, practical, sustainable. Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about a country that's having a major moment right now. Portugal. Beautiful beaches, amazing food, and apparently a pretty sweet spot to be an architect. What's the story there?
Oh yeah, Portugal is definitely on the rise, attracting a ton of international students, young professionals, everyone's kind of buzzing about it, and for good reason. They've got stunning historical architecture, those vibrant cities, and their economy is growing like crazy. Plus, their architecture schools are starting to get some serious international recognition. They're all about incorporating those traditional Portuguese design elements with modern, sustainable practices. And the best part, tuition is incredibly affordable compared to other European countries, and the cost of living? It's surprisingly low, especially if you venture outside of Lisbon.
Okay, stop. You're going to make me book a flight right now. I'm sold on at least a semester abroad in Lisbon. But let's get down to brass tacks. What about actual work opportunities, visas, all that practical stuff?
So you can definitely work while you study, though. To land a job in architecture itself, you'll probably need at least some Portuguese language skills. But their visa system is pretty straightforward. And they're really open to giving residency permits to students who graduate from Portuguese universities. They even have this special golden visa program. Specifically for investors, it's been getting a lot of attention lately.
Interesting. So it sounds like Portugal is a great option for people who are drawn to, I don't know, a more laid-back lifestyle, that vibrant culture, and a chance to make their mark in a growing architectural scene. But before we all pack our bags for the Algarve, let's explore a few more destinations, shall we?
Okay, so we've covered some pretty incredible options. Everything from, Finland with its sustainability focus to Portugal's like historical charm. But before you make any big decisions, there are a couple more places we got to put on your radar. Yeah, for sure. And these next two, they're really different. One's all about, balance, being flexible, that kind of thing. And the other one is, well, let's just say it's for those who aren't afraid to dream big,
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me. So first up, we've got the Netherlands. What's so balanced about it?
Well, a few things. The Netherlands is known for its crazy high quality of life, its really progressive design scene, and their education system. Super well structured. Their architecture schools are famous. World-renowned for their focus on sustainability, innovation. They often incorporate cutting-edge technology and research right into the curriculum. Oh, and a lot of programs are taught in English. Huge plus for international students.
So, chicken check, high-quality education, no language barrier. But what about working while you study? Can you actually make that happen in the Netherlands?
You absolutely can, and a lot of students do. The Dutch government is actually really pro-students working part-time. You can work up to 16 hours a week during the semester. And a lot of architecture firms, they're actively looking for student interns. So you can get some awesome hands-on experience. This is especially true in cities like Rotterdam and Amsterdam. Yeah. Those places are known for pushing the boundaries with architecture. It's all bold, modern designs, super innovative approaches to sustainability and urban planning.
Sounds like the perfect mix of theory and practice. But let's say, hypothetically, you completely fall in love with the Dutch lifestyle. The canals, riding your bike everywhere, all the stroopwafels you can eat. Is it actually possible to stay after you graduate? Or is that just a pipe dream?
Okay, so this is where the balance part really shines. The Netherlands has this thing called a search year visa, specifically for international grads. Basically, you get a whole year after graduation to find a job in your field. No pressure to have everything lined up before you even finish your studies. And get this, during that year, you have full working rights. You can really dive headfirst into the Dutch job market.
That's amazing. It takes so much pressure off, right? It's like they understand that finding the right career path, it takes time. You got to explore a bit. Okay, so drum roll, please. Time for the dream big option. You mentioned Qatar earlier, and I got to admit, I'm super curious now.
All right, Qatar. So Qatar is like this fascinating case study in, architectural ambition and just rapid development in general. Over the last few decades, they've completely transformed their skyline. It's like a showcase of futuristic design now. Think iconic structures like the Museum of Islamic Art, the Aspire Tower. They're constantly pushing boundaries. It's pretty incredible. And then with the 2022 World Cup, well, they just solidified their position as this global hub for innovation and design. Yeah, those stadios were insane. To be a part of that kind of architectural revolution, that must be something else. But what's it actually like for someone studying architecture there? On a practical level, I mean.
Okay, well, first of all, the quality of education is top-notch, no question. They've poured tons of resources into their universities, attracting leading professors from all over the world, building state-of-the-art facilities. It's really impressive. And a lot of programs are taught in English, which reflects, Qatar's international focus. Plus, the job market for architects is booming, like seriously booming. There are tons of opportunities to work on these high-profile, really exciting projects, but there are some things to keep in mind.
I'm guessing those things have something to do with the cultural differences and, well, Qatar's unique way of life. It's exactly. Qatar is a conservative Islamic country, so their norms, their values are pretty different from what you might be used to in the West.
Mm-hmm.
So it's essential to do your homework, be respectful of their customs and traditions. Also, the climate is intense, like scorching hot summers. But on the plus side, the cost of living is relatively affordable, especially compared to other major cities in the region, and the quality of life is generally pretty high. Great healthcare, amazing infrastructure, and it's a very safe and secure environment overall.
So, Qatar, a place where you can really push your architectural limits, work on groundbreaking projects, and experience a totally different way of life. But it's definitely not for everyone. You need to be adaptable, open-minded, and ready to embrace a new culture.
100%. And one more thing on the practical side. Getting long-term residency in Qatar can be tough. They're very strict with their immigration policies, and becoming a citizen is extremely difficult. So it's more about gaining invaluable experience, building your international portfolio, maybe not so much about settling down permanently.
So it's a strategic move, right? For those who are seeking a very specific kind of architectural adventure. Okay, before we wrap up our global tour, there's one more spot we need to hit. And this one's going to be a bit closer to home for a lot of our listeners.
Ah, yes. France. Land of romance, incredible food, and of course, breathtaking architecture. It's always had this, special allure for architects. But is it all croissants and Parisian sunsets? Or is there more to the story?
Well, that's exactly what we're about to find out. Let's dive into the realities of studying and working as an architect in France. Welcome back to the show.
So we're putting the finishing touches on our world tour of countries that are perfect for architects who are looking to get their master's degree abroad. And we saved a classic for last. France.
It's true. France, they've got this long and rich history of architecture. I mean, everything from those stunning Gothic cathedrals to, some really incredible modern masterpieces. It's a country that just lives and breathes design. And that really comes through in their architecture schools. They're rigorous, super well respected. Yeah, I mean, everyone's heard of the École des Beaux-Arts, right? It's basically like the Harvard of architecture schools. But realistically, can someone who's not from France actually study there? And what about finding work afterwards? Is that even possible?
Well, the expert on the EPOCOR podcast, they had some really insightful thoughts on this. First of all, even though there are more and more English-taught programs popping up, if you really want to make it in the French architecture world, being fluent in French, it's non-negotiable. I don't just mean like understanding lectures and stuff. It's about navigating client meetings, understanding building codes, really becoming part of the entire professional landscape.
So maybe a year of intensive French classes before you even apply. Not a bad idea.
Definitely wouldn't hurt.
Yeah.
And then as far as work goes, yeah, France offers internships, part-time jobs for students, that kind of thing. But the competition, it's fierce. But here's the thing. If you can break into the French architectural scene, the rewards can be huge. Think of it this way. Would you rather be a small fish in a massive pond or a big fish in a smaller, more, specialized one?
Ooh, that's a good point. It's all about finding the right fit, not just for your ambitions, but for your personality too. Okay, so deep breath, everyone. We've explored a ton of options today. Finland, Germany, USA, Canada, Portugal, the Netherlands, Qatar, and now France. I bet our listeners' head is spinning right now.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in. And that's exactly why it's so important to keep those 4 key factors front and center. Remember, work opportunities, pathway to residency, language, and quality of life. Every country we talked about, it offers a different mix of those things. And it really comes down to what you prioritize, what matters most to you.
Exactly. It's like creating your own personal scorecard, right? Maybe you're willing to, trade a higher salary for a smoother path to residency. Or maybe for you, being fluent in the local language is the most important thing.
Right. And don't forget that last piece of advice from the expert. Make sure your choices match up with your long-term goals. Like, what are you hoping to achieve with this master's degree? Are you trying to specialize in something specific, like sustainable design or historic preservation? Is it about gaining international experience to boost your career back home? Or is it about, really immersing yourself in a new culture, building a whole new life abroad? Once you figure out the answer to that question, it'll make choosing the right country way easier.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's go back to that question we asked at the beginning. Knowing everything we've talked about today, which country is calling your name and why? Hold on to that feeling, that little spark of interest. It's the first step in your adventure. Because remember, choosing a master's program abroad, it's not just about academics. It's about designing a future that truly aligns with your passions, with your dreams. So thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and best of luck on your journey.